Two balls and a strike to count on Taylor. Reyes fires, swing and a drive, deep left field. It's his way back. Walk the ball. Chris Taylor.
What's up, everyone? Welcome into DodgerHeads, presented by DodgerBlue.com. My name is Jeff Spiegel, joined today by Matt Moreno. Matt, it's a day that we kind of knew was coming, but we were hoping wouldn't ever happen. Well, here it is. Spring training officially delayed. I'll start with a quick question to you. Are you surprised that we got to this point?
Not at all. I mean, I think this was coming, if you kind of monitor the progress or lack thereof.
Yeah, progress. Wow.
Yeah.
Was there progress that I missed?
Yeah, with the CBA negotiations throughout the offseason, this was obvious. And, frankly, I'm surprised that it even got to this point and it didn't happen earlier because, Rob Manfred at the end of the owners' meetings in Orlando, that was my when it was, kind of announced he was going to have a press conference. I thought, okay, he's going to announce spring training is delayed because just the calendar wasn't going to allow for a new CBA to be agreed to and camps to kind of open as scheduled. He pushed back on that. He said, no, things are still scheduled as they have been. I think some of that was just PR and maybe not wanting to go into a CBA negotiation already having pushed back spring training. But, here we are.
Yeah. How we got here, I think, is a fascinating tale. And look, I'm just going to say up front, if you're the type of person who is putting 50-50 blame on the players and the owners, then I have bad news for you. You're not going to like everything I'm about to say. Because to me, this is a complete and abject failure by Rob Manfred and the owners to read the room, to understand the situation, and basically not be incredibly greedy human beings who are trying to take every dollar possible at the expense of the sport as a whole. So how did we get here? The last sort of negotiations that we had, I think, are a very telltale sign of if you want to understand how things work. Manfred went into that meeting, said, quote, "We're going to make a good faith, positive proposal in an effort to move the process forward." Matt, breaking news. That was not a good faith, positive proposal. Why do I say that? Because here, as Joe Sheehan said, this was a December 11th offer that was made 2 months later. As soon as we found out the details, Manfred seems like a complete joke for saying that. Here's what happened. The owners and players, here's two pieces of data points. This is not everything they talked about, but I think it's illustrative. Okay? The owners and players had talked about a pre-arbitration bonus pool for players. They were $100 million apart. I think it was like $5 million the owners wanted to give. Again, $5 million league-wide was their initial proposal. The players want $105 million to spread over, hundreds of players, presumably. MLB generously closed this $100 million gap by offering to increase their number $10 million. So we're talking about $15 million for the entire pre-arbitration bonus pool that they're willing. Okay, that's point number one. But worse still was the competitive balance tax stuff. Remember, competitive balance tax, not intended to be a salary cap. It's intended to be penalties for going above it, but you are allowed to go above it. Well, guess what? It has behaved as if it was a salary cap. Now, whether that's owners colluding or whether the penalties are too stiff or whatever, basically nobody ever goes over the CBT. And if they do, it's for 1 or 2 years, and they definitely try and get under it, even big market teams like ours, the Dodgers. So the players hate the CBT thresholds. They want them either removed, they want them dramatically increased, or they want the penalties completely weakened. Okay, so listen to what MLB did, because this is comical here. So what they had initially said was that this would go up from $214 million starting in 2022 to $220 million in 2026. They offered us $6 million. This was the standard, okay? So they said, you know what? We get it. We're going to increase our proposal. We're gonna concede here, okay? So in 2022, instead of $214 million, oh, no, wait, it's going to stay at $214 million. Okay, 2023, instead of it being $214 million, oh, no, wait, it's actually going to stay at $214 million for that. 2024, generous, $214 million. We're going to bump that up a whopping $2 million. 2025, we'll bump it up another $2 million. 2026, a whopping $2 million. They offered $6 million in increases on the competitive balance tax threshold between now and 2026, $6 million. Matt, this is completely comical to me. It's a complete miss by them. John Heyman, noted MLB owner, water carrier, tweeted this. MLB after the fact. MLB understood its proposal carried no hope to facilitate a deal. So somehow we went from good faith, positive proposal ahead of time to proposed deal offered no hope was the after the fact. This is pathetic. This is how we got here, and I can't stand it.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, the whole situation is a mess, and ultimately, who loses most are the fans and really the sport. And like we've talked about in some of our other videos throughout the offseason, free agency was exciting, right? You had all these big signings in a short period of time. but like we sort of agreed, it was very much predicated on, well, it's because there's the deadline. And
Yeah.
I was even, more cynical going into that, saying, are the owners just going to try to use this as, well, saying, hey, look, we did spend on players, so why are
Yeah.
you guys saying the system is broken? And now here we are. Like, it's hard to take the owners seriously with like all the details you just outlined. Like that's not an offer, right?
Right.
Like we, basically they've been putting lipstick on a pig and just trying to, change the window dressing
Right.
with each time they submit a quote unquote new offer. And, here we are. Obviously, camp should have been opening. Had this been going on in December, that's one thing, because you
Yeah.
think, okay, there's still, 6 weeks for them to really figure it out. But it's just disappointing. And, the argument has definitely been framed of billionaires and millionaires, but that's not true. There's been reports and studies put out by the AP and other outlets explaining players actually, there's a significant portion of players who are making, I believe, less than 1 million.
Yeah.
And that's obviously still a substantial amount of money that they're taking home compared to an average citizen. We understand that, but baseball kind of collectively, the sport as a business, is doing financially well, and the
Yeah.
owners are just trying to paint a picture that tells a completely different story.
Yeah, and even the millionaires are dependent upon this sport happening to maintain their money. The owners don't have to do anything. The owners have lied. I mean, like I've said this before. I think the owners just miscalculated. They are living in a world of 20 years ago where they think they can shape the narrative, where they think they can just tell people, look, we made concessions, they're greedy. It's a social media age. We know every detail of their proposal like 45 minutes after the last meeting. We've got players that we have access to now who can tell us, like Casey Sadler, former Dodger pitcher for a little bit. If you followed his stuff on Twitter, you should check it out. He talks about the minor leagues and how little money they made and how he's working multiple jobs and having to pay multiple mortgages and the whole deal. And on top of that, by the way, MLB in the midst of all this decides that, oh yeah, we also don't want to pay minor leaguers for spring training because guess what? We're blessing them by just allowing us to be around. I mean, it is a total whiff. It's a total miss. And I'm with you. I mean, the owners want to say, hey, look, we've made concessions. Well, the problem is when you try and close a $100 million gap with a $10 million concession, when you raise the CBT threshold, which is a major point of the player's position, when you raise it less than 1 percentage point, starting 3 years from now, for 3 years, like it's all comical. It's all a miss. Now, let me end with a slight bit of optimism. If you would like to be optimistic about this, not the spring training piece, because I still remain convinced that opening day is not going to happen on time. If there's one good bit of good news, there is some sense that maybe MLB has made clear the issues on which they are willing to negotiate. So the fact that they have moved on the pre-arbitration pool, the fact that they have moved on the draft lottery, the fact that they have moved a little bit on the CBT thresholds, there's some belief that they have sort of told the players, this is what we're willing to negotiate on. Now, the question is, how much? Like, are they willing to, the players for the CBT thresholds, for example, they want them like 250 to 270 million. So we're still talking about a massive $30 million difference. Also, the players don't want to wait 6 years for that number to increase like MLB has proposed. And so I think that's the number to watch is they've said, okay, we'll negotiate on pre-arbitration bonus pools and we'll negotiate on the CBT threshold. If they can move that up, if they can get somewhere closer to the middle, then I think that's the hope that you have, that there is some clarity there. Obviously, a long way to go. I get the sense, Matt, you correct me if I'm wrong, I get the sense that the players are locked in. Like they're just ready to roll. They're not going to sort of cave and get pressured to do this. I think social media has empowered them. I think the losses that they've taken in previous negotiations has empowered them. And so I think the owners are whiffing on this. I think they're not realizing how committed the players are. And so, again, I'll ask you, do you think opening day happens on time? I've remained pessimistic. I'm obviously more pessimistic now that it happens on time, but I'll come to you for the last word on this one.
I guess I'm a little bit more pessimistic now than I was. I thought before that, it would be, if I needed to bet, I would say no, but still I'll hedge it a little bit by saying, maybe it only gets delayed by like a day or two instead of being, kind of the March 31st original date. But yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think the players definitely are banded together. I think 2020 and that whole fiasco has really galvanized them, on top of the last collective bargaining agreement really being one that now in retrospect was heavily tilted towards the owners. And I think players realized that as it, was kind of going on and they were living it. I think another thing too that we could get into, we've either now or just at a later time is MLB, and it seems like we will have some format of an expanded postseason, which again is more in favor of the owners, which is fine. Like, hey, like, okay, but that's a chip you guys are getting, and they're trying to paint it as, you know, a real big win-win for everybody when it's not. That's not going to be a 50-50 pie that gets split.
Totally. Yeah, we have to find those things where one side is more than willing to give it up, right? Like the DH is something everybody agreed on, and the owners kept making it seem like, fine, we'll concede. We'll let you have the universal DH. It's like we all want this. So we'll see. I'll ask the fans. If we put the over-under at 1 week late, April 6th, Matt is going under. He's saying before April 6th is when the Major League Baseball season begins. I am saying over. I think we're talking about weeks, not days, as far as when this is going to be delayed. Let us know what you think in the comments below. Let us know what you think about this. Spring training officially delayed. Again, that's breaking news here. That's Matt Moreno. My name is Jeff Spiegel. We appreciate you joining us. As always, check out DodgerBlue.com, DodgerBlue1958 on social media, and of course, please subscribe, ring the notification bell, and hey, tell your friends about us as well. We appreciate it.